Imagine a boxing ring. Amsterdam, March 1971. On one side stands a woman who makes grown men look small. 6'2", 240 pounds of dense, functional muscle built through years of throwing full-power kicks and knees. Hands that have broken ribs. Shins conditioned like iron bars. A kickboxing champion who has never lost to a male opponent. On the other side stands Bruce Lee, 5'7", 135 pounds soaking wet. A Chinese-American actor most Dutch people have never heard of. The size difference is absurd. She outweighs him by over 100 pounds. Her thigh is thicker than his waist. One clean kick could break him in half. The Dutch crowd is laughing, not at her, at him, at the idea that this is supposed to be a fight. They came expecting a spectacle. They're about to witness something else entirely. Her name was Saskia Van Der Berg, 28 years old, born in Rotterdam to a family of dock workers. She had started kickboxing at 15, the only girl in a gym full of men who thought she was there as a joke. By 18, she was knocking them unconscious. By 22, she held the Dutch heavyweight championship. Not women's heavyweight, the actual heavyweight division, competing against men who outweighed her, men who fought with everything they had, men who learned the hard way that size and gender meant nothing against someone who understood violence at a cellular level. Saskia had fought 37 professional matches, 37 wins, 32 by knockout. She had broken jaws, cracked ribs, hospitalized opponents who thought their masculinity would protect them from a woman's strikes. It didn't. Her right low kick had ended 11 fights outright. The damage to the leg so severe the opponent couldn't continue. Her knees to the body had caused internal bleeding. Her punches, thrown with the full rotation of her considerable mass, carried enough force to concuss professional fighters. When the challenge came through underground channels, a request from Hong Kong asking if the Dutch kickboxing champion would face Bruce Lee in a private exhibition match, Saskia's response was immediate. Yes, absolutely. She had heard vague rumors about this Chinese actor who claimed to have revolutionized martial arts. She had seen none of his movies. She knew nothing about Jeet Kune Do or Wing Chun or any philosophy. She knew one thing. She was 240 pounds of bone and muscle and scar tissue. And he was a movie star who weighed less than most welterweights. The fight would last 30 seconds, maybe less. Bruce had accepted the challenge for reasons that had nothing to do with pride. He was in Europe, teaching seminars, demonstrating techniques, trying to spread understanding about fighting that transcended traditional boundaries. When Saskia's challenge arrived, carried by a Dutch martial arts instructor who trained at her gym, Bruce saw an opportunity to demonstrate something important. Not that he could beat a woman, not that size didn't matter, but that understanding physics, leverage, timing, and human anatomy could allow a smaller fighter to compete against someone with overwhelming physical advantages. The match was scheduled for a private gym in Amsterdam. 20 witnesses, a standard boxing ring, 3 5-minute rounds, full contact kickboxing rules, which meant punches, kicks, knees, elbows, everything except throws and ground fighting. The gym was in a warehouse district near Amsterdam's port. March in the Netherlands meant cold that seeped through walls and settled into bones. Inside, the space smelled like old sweat and leather and the particular musk of a place where violence happened regularly. A boxing ring dominated the center, ropes sagging slightly, canvas stained from years of blood and spit. 20 people formed a loose perimeter. Mostly men, mostly Dutch kickboxers who trained with Saskia or had fought against her and lost. A few journalists, One photographer, whose images would later become impossible to verify, dismissed as elaborate fakes because what they showed seemed to violate basic physics. Saskia entered first. The crowd erupted, cheering, whistling, stamping feet. She was their champion, their proof that Dutch kickboxing produced the hardest fighters in Europe. She wore black shorts and a black sports top. Her arms were bare, revealing shoulders and biceps that belonged on a heavyweight boxer. Her legs were massive, quadriceps visible even when relaxed, calves thick as most men's thighs. She moved with the particular confidence of someone who had never encountered a physical problem she couldn't solve with violence. Bruce entered quietly. No music, no announcement. He simply walked through the crowd wearing simple black shorts, his torso bare, his body looking almost fragile compared to the woman waiting in the ring. The laughter started immediately. Not cruel laughter, confused laughter. The kind that happens when people see something so mismatched, they assume it must be a joke. A few people in the crowd called out in Dutch, words Bruce didn't need translated to understand. They thought this was a publicity stunt. They thought the movie star would tap out after the first hard kick. They thought Saskia would carry him for a round to make it look competitive before ending it. They were wrong. Bruce climbed through the ropes and stood in his corner. Saskia stood in hers, rolling her shoulders, bouncing slightly, loosening her massive frame. The referee, a Dutch kickboxing judge named Van Dam, called them to the center of the ring. Standing next to each other, the size difference was almost comical. Saskia looked down at Bruce. He looked up at her. Neither spoke. "This is full contact kickboxing," Van Dam said in English for Bruce's benefit. 3 rounds, 5 minutes each. All strikes legal except groin and eye gouges. Knockdown. The count begins. 3 knockdowns. The fight is over. Understand? Both fighters nodded. "Touch gloves." Saskia extended her massive fist. Bruce tapped it with his own, the difference in hand size startling. Her knuckles were scarred and enlarged. His were smaller, but carried their own history. "Back to your corners. When the bell rings, begin." They separated. The crowd was buzzing now, anticipation building. Someone in the back yelled something in Dutch that made several people laugh. Saskia smiled. A predatory smile. The smile of someone who knew exactly how the next 15 minutes would unfold. The bell rang. Saskia came forward immediately. No feeling out. No testing distance. She launched a right low kick at Bruce's lead leg with her full weight behind it. The kind of kick that had ended 11 professional fights. The kind that damaged nerves and blood vessels and left opponents unable to stand. Her shin, conditioned through years of kicking heavy bags and trees and sparring partners, cut through the air with a sound like a baseball bat swinging. Bruce's leg moved, not away, forward. He checked the kick, shin to shin, but instead of absorbing the impact and resetting, he flowed with it, redirecting her momentum, stepping inside her guard as her kicking leg was still retracting. His fist struck her ribs. A short punch, maybe 6 inches of travel. It landed with a sharp crack that made several people in the crowd gasp. Saskia's eyes widened, not from pain, from surprise. She had been hit before, hard, by men who outweighed her. But she had never been hit like that. The strike had penetrated. It had gone through her considerable muscle mass and impacted the ribs beneath. It had hurt. She responded with a left hook aimed at Bruce's head, a punch thrown with her full rotation, her shoulder, her hip, her massive legs all contributing force. The punch could have separated consciousness from body, if it landed clean. Bruce's head moved. Not a big slip, 4 inches, just enough. The fist passed by his ear close enough that he felt the wind. His counter was already moving, a straight right that traveled the center line, that found the gap in her guard, that struck her solar plexus before she had fully retracted her missed hook. The air left Saskia's lungs in an explosive grunt. Her forward momentum stopped. For the first time in 37 professional fights, she took a step backward not because she chose to, but because her body demanded it. The crowd went silent. Bruce didn't press. He reset to his stance, hands loose, weight centered, watching. Saskia stared at him for a long moment, her expression shifting from confidence to something more complex. Respect, recognition, the understanding that she was not fighting what she thought she was fighting. She attacked again, this time with more caution. A jab to measure distance. Bruce slipped it, a right cross following. Bruce ducked under it. A left kick to his body. Bruce caught it. Actually caught her leg mid-flight. Her leg. The leg that weighed more than 40 pounds. He caught it with both hands, redirected it past his body, and swept her supporting leg before she could recover. Saskia went down, hard. The ring shook when her 240 pounds hit the canvas. The crowd erupted, not cheering, shouting in disbelief. Their champion, the woman who had never been taken down in a kickboxing match, was on her back looking up at the lights. Van Dam began the count. 1, 2, 3. Saskia was already getting up. She wasn't hurt, just shocked. The referee checked her eyes, asked if she could continue in Dutch. She nodded curtly, fury building in her expression. She had been embarrassed, in front of her people, by someone half her size. That would not stand. The fight restarted. Saskia came forward with everything she had. No more caution, no more testing. She launched a combination that would have destroyed most fighters. Right low kick, left hook, right knee, left elbow, right cross. 5 strikes thrown in perhaps 2 seconds, each one capable of ending the fight. None landed clean. Bruce moved through the combination like water flowing through rocks. The low kick was checked. The hook was slipped. The knee was redirected. The elbow was parried. The cross was ducked. And in the gaps between her attacks, in the fractions of seconds where she was transitioning from one technique to the next, Bruce struck. Body shot, liver shot, solar plexus, ribs, sternum, short punches, economical, precise. Each one landing with enough force to make her grunt, to make her massive frame respond, to accumulate damage in ways she had never experienced. 90 seconds into the first round, Saskia was breathing hard. Not from exhaustion, from pain. Her ribs were screaming. Her liver was sending distress signals. Her solar plexus had been hit 4 times, each impact driving air from her lungs. She had landed strikes too. A right hand that had clipped Bruce's shoulder. A left kick that had made partial contact with his hip. But nothing clean. Nothing with her full power. Everything was being slipped or redirected or absorbed in ways that minimized damage. She changed tactics. If precision wasn't working, she would use her overwhelming size advantage. She rushed forward, trying to clinch, trying to get her hands on him, trying to use her 100-pound weight advantage to smother his movement and deliver knees at close range where his speed couldn't save him. Bruce didn't retreat. He moved into her rush, not away from it, into it. At close range, his hands found her wrists, her elbows, controlling her limbs before they could grab him. He delivered a knee to her thigh that made her stumble, an elbow to her shoulder that temporarily deadened her arm. He was fighting where she was strongest, in the clinch, and he was winning. The bell rang. End of round 1. Saskia walked back to her corner, her expression dark. Her coach, a man named Hendrik, who had trained her since she was 15, was talking urgently in Dutch. She wasn't listening. She was staring across the ring at Bruce, who sat calmly on his stool, breathing normally, showing no signs of the 5-minute war he had just fought. Round 2 began. Saskia came out more controlled. She had fought enough to know that emotion was a liability. She needed to be smart. Use her reach. Keep him at distance. Make him come to her where she could time his entries with her devastating low kicks. The strategy was sound. Against most fighters, it would have worked. Bruce wasn't most fighters. He started pressing forward. Not rushing. Walking. Cutting off the ring with small steps that limited her space to move. Every time she tried to circle away, he was there, closing the angle, forcing her to engage. She threw low kicks. He checked them or moved through them, taking partial damage to land his own counters. She threw her right cross, her best punch. He slipped it and countered with a hook to her ribs that made her gasp audibly. 2 minutes into round 2, something shifted in Saskia's eyes. It was the look of someone realizing they couldn't win. She was bigger, stronger, more powerful, and none of it mattered. He was faster, smarter, more precise, and the accumulation of his strikes was breaking her down in ways she couldn't prevent. Her ribs were on fire. Her legs were heavy from defending his kicks. Her wind was compromised from the repeated body shots. She launched a desperate combination. Everything she had left. High kick, spinning back fist, flying knee. 3 spectacular techniques thrown with perfect form and bad intentions. Bruce avoided all 3, moved inside her guard, and delivered a right cross that landed clean on her jaw. Saskia's legs went out from under her. She hit the canvas hard, her massive frame collapsing like a building losing its foundation. The crowd was screaming now, a mixture of shock and disbelief and horror. Their champion was down, really down. Van Dam began counting. 1, 2, 3, 4! Saskia's eyes were open but unfocused. Her hands moved, trying to push herself up, but her body wasn't responding the way it should. The punch had scrambled her circuits. 5, 6, 7. She made it to one knee, swaying, her equilibrium compromised. 8, 9. She stood. Barely. Van Dam looked into her eyes, waved his hand in front of her face, asked questions in Dutch. Saskia nodded. She could continue. Technically. The fight resumed, but everyone watching knew it was over. Saskia threw one more combination, slow, telegraphed, desperate. Bruce slipped it, moved to her side, and delivered a kick to her thigh that buckled her leg. She went down again. This time she stayed down, waving her hand, indicating she was done. Not knocked out, but finished. Unable to continue. Unwilling to take more damage for pride. Van Dam called the fight. Technical knockout. 2 minutes, 47 seconds into round 2. Bruce Lee, 135 pounds, had defeated Saskia Van Der Berg, 240 pounds, Dutch kickboxing champion, in a full contact match under kickboxing rules. The gymnasium was in chaos. People were shouting, arguing, some claiming the fight was fixed, others demanding to know how what they just saw was possible. Saskia sat against the ropes, her coach beside her, ice on her ribs, her face showing something beyond defeat. It showed understanding. the understanding that everything she thought she knew about size and power and fighting had been incomplete. Bruce walked to her corner and extended his hand. Saskia looked at it for a long moment, then took it. He pulled her to her feet. They stood in the center of the ring together, and Saskia raised Bruce's hand. The gesture of a champion, acknowledging someone who had taught her something she couldn't have learned any other way. Later, after the crowd had dispersed, after the immediate shock had faded, Saskia would tell journalists who asked that the fight had changed her understanding of combat. She would train in Jeet Kune Do principles for the next 3 years. She would go on to win another 15 fights, but she would do it differently, incorporating the lessons Bruce had taught her in less than 8 minutes of actual fighting. She would never forget standing in that ring, looking down at someone half her size and realizing that the person looking up at her understood violence at a level she was only beginning to comprehend. Bruce left Amsterdam the next day. The fight was barely documented. A few witnesses, one photographer whose images were later dismissed as fakes. No video, no official record, just a story that seemed too impossible to be true. A 135-pound man defeating a 240-pound kickboxing champion who had never lost to a male opponent. The mathematics seemed to make it impossible, but everyone who was there knew the truth. They had watched it happen. They had seen size and strength and power become irrelevant against someone who understood the deeper principles of combat. They had witnessed Bruce Lee prove, once again, that the greatest weapon wasn't the body. It was the mind that controlled it.